other paw, other paw, other paw. Good girl. What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here, this is the new project. I know I've been kind of spamming a lot of MIATA pages, hopefully to get some support and, you know, just expand my reach. So if you're new to the channel, this is my little MIATA, little 1.6, and then my Turbo Del Sol back here, my right-hand drive K-swapped Integra back there. So today I'm going to be wide-bodying my MIATA. Now I picked this up a couple weeks ago, runs mint, 90,000 original miles and whatnot, but the body is total ass. So I went and repaired the quarter panels already, just a little bit more sanding to do to cut down the Bondo. I ran out of daylight the other day. This one I totally repaired. It was dented in all gnarly, pulled it all out, made it look presumable, and or nice I should say. And now time to cut it all up. So I have a buddy that had a MIATA and he accidentally got rear-ended, so he had to part it out and he moved on to a different chassis now anyway. So he has hooked it up with some parts for the cheap. So we got some big old fatty wheels here. These are Rotogrids because I'm a broke boy and I can't afford TEs, nor do I really want TEs because they're hype beast wheels and I'm not about that life. But these were dirt cheap, so I can't complain. And these are what, 15x9, positive 15 for the rears, and then these front ones with the shot tires are 15x8, 0 offset. So these are some fat wheels. Obviously won't really fit too good under the stock body of this NA MIATA, so not gonna suffice with just a roll, and that's where these things come in. And I believe he said these are one-off. I know these are kind of everywhere, these style of flares, the ones that mold around the taillights and stuff, but these are handmade carbon Kevlar ones. So I don't know, I haven't really seen any carbon fiber ones of these as I've been looking. There's a lot of these on eBay, but they're all ABS plastic, which is fine. These were what I was gonna go with originally, but he had these ones in carbon Kevlar, so I was like, all right, shoot, let's do it. It looks sick, it looked great on his, and figured why not. So I'm by no means a professional at bodywork in the slightest. I just make do with what I have and try and make it look decent. So I don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to this whole wide body thing. I just know that I gotta essentially, you know, fit the wheels in one way or another. I've seen a lot of people do it. They cut the crap out of their quarters, blah, blah, but I'm not gonna be going too low because I got super wide wheels because I do a lot of canyon driving. I do occasional track days. So that's what the point of this car is. So I want to be able to slide it at some point, so obviously I'm going to need more power, especially with fat wheels like these. It will be getting boosted at some point if you watch my last video on it, and then it'll be getting a K-swap later on after that. But in the meantime, for now, I'll just have some fun with it and take it to the canyon and have just ridiculous mechanical grip. So I bought a riv nut tool and I got some cutoff wheels, so we're just going to try and make all that work. So first things first, to get a general idea, the car is on stock suspension right now. I'm waiting to get money to order the coilovers, but because I know roughly the drop on the coils I'm going to be running, it's going to be a max of 4 inches, but I don't plan on dropping at the full 4 inches. I plan on doing a 2.5 to 3 inch drop. And one thing that that a lot of you guys may or may not know is that just because you're running overflares, it doesn't mean that the tire is going to be all the way up there. And obviously the flares sit lower than the fender line itself. So because the flares are sitting down here, that doesn't mean I have to cut way up here, you know? So I'm gonna just probably go, I'm gonna measure it obviously, but I'm gonna, general rule of thumb, probably an inch up to be safe. And these MIATAs have like a steel liner on the inside too, so it's kind of a dual layer type thing. It's gonna take a little massaging. The front fenders are gonna be bone, like super easy. It's just a single layer, but yeah, this has this outer layer, then it has an inner layer, and I'll have to hammer it all together and weld it up and create the seam, which will be fine, it's easy. But I'm gonna go ahead and get these wheels slapped on, get a general rule of thumb, and kind of do some measuring from there and see where we sit. Things are definitely poking quite a bit. That's pretty crazy. But it looks really good, despite the wheel gap, obviously. The fronts really hardly have to do anything at all with, other than, you know, trim it so I don't rub them. But yeah, definitely gonna have to do some cutting on here. So essentially what I'm gonna be doing is just measuring a few inches up from the top of the tire. So honestly, I don't think, because the car on stock suspension is already decently low, so I'm not really thinking that I'm gonna have to lower it too much. And the stock suspension on this car is definitely solid, like it's stiff. So I'm thinking probably maybe 2.5 inches with the coils when I get them. So obviously gotta account for suspension travel and whatnot, but I don't think it's gonna be that much of an issue. So I think pretty much right above this body line here is the most that I'm really gonna have to do. But I'm gonna have to take the rear bumper off too, so that way I don't end up cutting into that. And then up here, I think I really just gotta worry about going from here to the arch. I don't have to worry about coming up here, because just the main centerpiece here really. All right, so I'm gonna just start with taping the flares on, because that'll give me an idea of obviously how they're gonna sit, but then also where I have to drill my holes for my riv nuts. So the nice things about these flares is you can see they curve right around the tail light right there, so it makes it pretty simple. So now that I got the fender flares on, taped up and whatnot, I'm gonna go ahead and mark roughly the area that I need to cut, you know? But I'm feeling like the fronts are, I don't know. The guy, obviously these were handmade out of carbon Kevlar, because you can buy the ABS ones online, but I feel like these fronts are more of a universal fit. They are a little kind of funky shape to go with the contour of the fender, so how it's wide here and then kind of gets a tight bend here. So I got that much figured out. I don't know, it's just the way they fit up on the ends here. Oh, well, the tape came off. And then the way it fits up there, it could be that my bumper is maybe pushed in a little bit for some reason, but either way, I'm not really too concerned about that, because this isn't a show car. But I don't know, to me it just looks a little funny. So for trimming these up, or for the marking, I'm just gonna basically follow the line of the body here. So you can't really see it because of the lighting, but the inside of the arch here on the fender flare is already cut out. So I'm basically just following that line with the Sharpie, and then I'm gonna go, I think, 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches up from there, like through the arch, and I'll cut that much out. Well, this is kind of the point of no return for the most part, so I'm gonna go ahead and start drilling some pilot holes with these on here. I'm gonna use a small drill bit, because to use a riv nut or the riv sert, you have to have a drill bit that's the same size as the riv sert itself, which is bigger than the bolt that I will be using. So yeah, pilot hole, let's go. So once you've got all your holes drilled out, I went ahead and already deburred these. I just took the flapper disc to it and smoothed it out. So I'm going to be using M6 by 1.0 thread pitch riv nuts. So to use these things, you pretty much just take your tool, you thread it all the way on, as far as it'll go. And I got this on Amazon for 60 bucks, and I got it delivered the same day. So you pretty much just put it in there, try and get it as straight as you can, and pull the arms closed. Okay, seems it's in there nice and tight. And then just turn this center dial and unthread it. And there we go, nice and sturdy. And yeah, I had to order some more because my kit only came with 10 of this size, so I found some more on Amazon. It'll be delivered a little bit later today, and I'm gonna go ahead and just get these all bolted up as much as I can, but half the work is done already. I'm not gonna bother buying fancy hardware online. I'm gonna just go to Ace Hardware and get like little glamour washers, as you may have heard of them, and some Allen head keys, and just make it look, I guess, kind of nice. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get some lunch here and then come back, and we're gonna start cutting these fenders up and hopefully not ruin the car, I guess, more than I just did doing this. On to the hard part now, which is where, or not even hard, just scary. I got it all marked up, both sides, pretty much the exact same in and out spot of the cut. This is the line of where the fender sits right here. The line was a little bit higher on the other side, even though the fender's in the same spot. It could just be how it's sitting or whatever, I don't know. But I'm going 1.25 inches up from the lip, so if that's not enough, then I'll have to go a little bit higher. Hopefully I don't. But these inside liners are made out of metal, so I think this should be good, because what I'm gonna have to do is cut this outside. It's gonna separate the inside liner from the outside liner. I'll split the seam, and then I'll trim this up just a hair more, and then I'm gonna go into the other piece and I'm gonna notch it, bend it out to where it creates a lip. I'll weld it shut, and then I'll grind it flat and make it look nice and clean, so I don't have to worry about moisture getting up in there. And then obviously both sides. As for the fronts, now that I've got the rivets in, or some rivets in, and the holes drilled, that means I gotta pretty much go the same distance. I'll probably go a little bit higher, try and do 2 inches, because the front does have more weight, obviously the engine and everything up here, so the front will travel just a little bit more, I think. So I'll try and go 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches max, but I think 1.5 inches will be good up front. So I'll mark that out, but let's get this cut up and get my day ruined. Now with that cut out, you can see the seam here. So I'll go ahead and get this separated a little bit. And then we're gonna just go up just a hair higher in this first layer, and then I'll just pound the corners in here. Not worried about that. So get these a little separated, and then trim a little bit higher and weld them together. So I took it up just like 1/8 inch higher. Now I'm gonna go get my body hammers and my dollies and try and get this up. I've seen people cut it, like notch it and then hammer it up, but I have actual hammers for the body work and stuff. So I'm gonna try and get this flush out of the way. I have to do less cutting and see how that works out. So now that I'm ready to weld, I'm gonna go ahead and disconnect your battery, because you always want to have your battery disconnected if you're gonna be welding on the chassis. Just because it can always arc out, or it could do something, and it could, you know, fry something. And realistically, when I'm doing it on my Hondas, I usually disconnect the ECUs as well, but I've welded on this car a couple times already by just disconnecting the battery, and ECU is still fine. So my welder setup, for those of you wondering, this is just a Harbor Freight titanium MiG 140. I used it for about a year now flawlessly. I love this thing. It's great for small jobs, home jobs, whatever. But anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and lay tacks on the ends here to close it up there, and then I'm gonna basically just be pinching the inside out, because I don't want the inside or the outside to go in like that, because I don't want it to, you know, damage the body later or pull it in. So need to use the hammer and whatever and just kind of smack it out as I go along right now, because it's not cut, like it has no relief cuts. It kind of wants to do its own thing. But if I do a tack, hammer it in a little bit, tack, hammer, tack, it's essentially the same thing, just without having to cut more. Got all the tack welds laid in place. So I'm gonna just take the flapper disc, clean it up, and then a lot of people tend to use JB weld to just go over the seam so that way you don't have to weld the whole thing shut, because that would take a while because you can only do slow tacks. But the JB weld seems to do a good job of sealing and preventing water and moisture from getting in there. So I'm gonna go do the same thing. You guys know or should know how to use JB weld. Just mix it up like Bondo and just slather it on, and then you can grind it flat, sand it flat, whatever. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started on the other side now. Finished up with the rear end. I just gotta go get some JB weld so I can do the seam on the inside here. Definitely a lot of clearance for sure. I just bolted it all up for the most part just to make sure all the holes line up. I do have to drill the ones in the carbon a little bit, hollow them out or hog them out or whatever, because they don't, this one doesn't really fit a screw to, I don't know. Yeah, you know what I mean. But anyway, I still have to cut the front fenders. You guys don't really need to see that. It's the same exact thing. I'm gonna just do 1.5 inches this time instead of 1.25 inches, just following the flare line. And yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good though. Despite it being an absolute monster back here right now. Yeah, definitely need some coilovers. Just spun this thing around the block. It feels like an absolute tank with having these big old fat wheels on here. These front tires are definitely shot. They're totally worn out, like unevenly as well. So it kind of pulls the car around, but feels really cool. And I'm really digging the look. Obviously it'll look a million times better once it's painted, so hopefully here in the next week. Because the goal is to be able to paint the car hopefully next weekend. I get paid next Friday, so hopefully I can either get the paint by then or with that paycheck. I already ordered clear coat. It's coming in the mail. Shouldn't be here till Monday. And if it wasn't for that and the fact that it's supposed to be like 50 degrees this weekend, then I would paint it this weekend. But this took a whole day, so I don't even have time to do it this weekend anyway, because I have to finish prep work on this thing, because I still have to finish up doing the front cuts, and then the whole body is done with 150, 180 I think. So I'm just gonna go up to a 600 wet, and then I'm gonna end up shooting it. So I do need to pull the bumper off, pull the fenders off, pull the headlights, or not the headlights, the mirrors and stuff. So that way I can, you know, I like to paint it all separate, so that way I can get around the edges, and it's just easier that way. So hopefully you guys found this video enjoyable. If you did, you know what to do. Hit the rest of that like button. I hope you consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. And if you enjoyed it, then stick around. There's plenty more where it's coming from. Yeah, I don't really have much coming up for the Integra though, because what am I going to do with it right now? Everything that I want to do to it now is super expensive. And then Docile is good as long as this manifold holds up on me that I had to fix last night. And yeah. Anyways guys, do what you love for you to the rest. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.